So I've just finished looking through 90 submissions for Ephemere Tokyo's recent open call. And the reason I've been doing that is because I am a co-curator of that open call, which has been a really cool opportunity. If you don't know, Ephemere is a book publisher and gallery in Tokyo that has been going for, I believe, 2 or 3 years and is run by a very lovely lady called Anne Moriyama. And I came into contact with them late last year when they put out another open call for black and white images, and anyone who knows my work knows that is like right up my street. And I managed to get included in their publication called Anarchy Number 2, which was the second black and white publication they did. And it was this image here I've been using a lot, as it's a nice bridge image between my last book, Glimpse, and the next one, which should be called Vagabond if all goes to plan. But I submitted that image. I knew a little bit about Ephemere. I knew a few other people in the local area of Northampton had also done some stuff with them. So I thought I'd give it a shot. My image got included, which was a win. And then they announced another open call. So I had a look, and it was Diptychs, and I decided I was going to submit until I had a read through the entire webpage of the submission, and I saw a new section, which was Become a Co-curator, which fascinated me. The reason it fascinated me so much was because I run my space here, Photomafia, which is essentially an art space and a bookshop, kind of similar to Ephemere, but we do it in Northamptonshire and we're a photo studio as well. So I've been curating shows for 2.5, 3 years now, doing monthly exhibitions in the studio, and I thought getting involved with Ephemere's Open Call would be a perfect way to use those skills in a different space and also see, because there is other co-curators and getting to work with someone else who does similar things, just see what I could bring back to the community here and bolster what we do and improve in those areas. I received an email saying that I got in alongside 14 other curators, which was more than the original 2 planned. They're all a lovely bunch of people, and it's exciting to work alongside them, Anne, Andre and April, who are part of the Ephemere team. So it started off with a Zoom call, as things often do in modern day, where we got to know each other and we had to explain who we were and describe how we were going to judge these diptychs and pick 3 ways we were going about it. There was a lot of interesting answers posed, but I was very interested in the idea of like emergent themes, things that exist when you put the image together, but if you took either of them apart, they'd stop meaning those things, and just really looking for intent from the artist as well, because the temptation with an open call like this is to kind of just find 2 random images in your archives that kind of work and smash them together. And from having looked at 90 already, I can tell who did that and who didn't, and what was like meant to be a diptych. And it's got me thinking about like what really makes effective ones and what really doesn't work, especially when I'm losing the context of who's doing it or the rest of the project. It's interesting to judge it from a complete off viewpoint and going through them. So I had 2 weeks to sit with these ones, and yeah, it's really interesting and seeing a lot of similarities of like different people in different countries, and also like you can tell who read the submission guidelines and who didn't, and as well just like who knows Ephemere has the house style and who's going for that and who's maybe trying to break that or being themselves, which is okay too. Which is another thing from my perspective with Photomafia. I don't want to limit ourselves with what type of work gets displayed here. And I know that like from our humble beginnings showing people in the area, that tendency tends to crop up because everyone's pulling from the same life experience. So being aware of that, I think, is quite important. After the meet and greet, we were also asked to submit some diptychs of our own. I went with this pair, which is actually from the same series as the road picture that got featured in Anarchy 2, and I love the way they pair up. It's the shadow that cuts across the corner of the building that almost matches the shape of the cliff in the front half of the second image like perfectly. When you pair them together, it really calls attention to that light on the building, just literally nicks the corner of the window. So that's why I went with those ones, and it kind of exemplified the things I was looking for in other people's work. So after the Zoom meeting, Anne put all of the different curators' selections together and posted them to announce who was co-curating with her on this project. So we've just had the second curator meeting. It was really good to catch up with everyone again and share our thoughts on all of the diptychs we'd just gone through and the submissions. It was interesting to see how some people had gone in very different directions, but a commonality I saw is really how a lot of the curators could tell who had put more effort into their submissions and who had rushed them and who had really took the time to consider what they were submitting and why. And a big factor for a lot of them was whether people had actually written descriptions or not, which sparked some internal battles of, well, does all photography need words to be valuable? Should the curators not be able to think and consider the work to understand it without the need for words? But also, should the curator be aware of their sort of biases they have and the schools of thought they're coming from that may not apply to work from someone from the other side of the planet? And that's where this open call is becoming really interesting, because almost none of the curators are from the same country, and almost all of the submissions are coming from different countries as well, so there's a real mix of approaches to photography. And you almost have to take this critical approach of assuming that everything that's been submitted has been done so deliberately, even though you may know on the inside that maybe the artist's just been lazy and slapped something together at the last minute, which is, a strange kind of mental battle to go along. And once we've talked about our experience with all the paid submissions, we moved on to the free submissions, which we're starting in the next couple of days. We found out that now there are 400 submissions, which is a lot. Luckily, there's only one diptych per submission, which is less daunting than some of the paid submissions that we're submitting 4 per person. And I think we've been given a month to review them rather than 2 weeks. And there was a few other ideas batted about maybe splitting the curation in 2, like dividing down into 2 teams or giving a set amount to each curator. But I think the problem with those were that not everyone would get to see every piece of work, and meaning some work would be judged by different merits than others, and could lead to quite a disjointed book at the end of basically almost like a chapter per curator rather than a whole collective effort. We also met some of the other curators who didn't make the first meeting due to the time differences, including April CO, who is the book designer for Ephemere. I'm looking forward to hearing more and seeing more of what she does with the project as it goes forward. I believe this is not her first project with Ephemere. She's been on the team for a long time, so I'm interested to get some insight from her about her approach and how she's feeling about the 400 plus submissions we've got to go to. Anyway, we don't get the submissions for a few days yet to look through, so I'm gonna enjoy getting some stuff done and enjoy the little mini heat wave we're having in the UK right now. So one of the burning questions I'm having at the moment is, I do wonder of which selection I'm going to see the highest quality work in. As something that crossed my mind with the paid submissions, it's like, have people paid under the assumption that they'll get special treatment when it comes to the curation? Which obviously, in terms of fairness, it's like, no. The payment is essentially a donation to Ephemere to help them with the cost of publishing. You don't get any benefit from or favour from the curators to judge your work higher, although through submitting 4 diptychs, I guess in a way for some of the submissions I got more context as what the artist was going for. So in that sense there is a slight built-in advantage, but also I did have a nagging feeling that maybe I'm going to see much better work in the free section, and maybe artists that are more confident that paying isn't going to help me out or boost me up, as there was a few submissions I saw that was like, this doesn't feel like work that's ready to be published or put out to the world. Okay, I'm back after a brief excursion in the mini summer we just experienced. As you saw in the montage, I headed down to Birmingham and checked out Duplicate Publishing Fair at Eastside Projects, which was really cool and made for a good day out, and we got to bring our bookshop along and share it with a bunch of people, so really can't complain and want to get down there a lot more. But I'm back in the studio again, the weather's gone grey again, and I've been spending the last few days going through the free submissions, all 368 of them. I've got another probably 2 days of going through left, so about 60 more Diptychs to go. And it's been really interesting to look at how the free submissions differ from the paid ones. A lot more without any writing at all or any context given to what I'm looking at. And some that feel like they've really tried a lot. It's very like one end of the spectrum or the other. And I'm hoping to go through a few with you that I really enjoyed. So one that really caught my attention as we're going through is this diptych here by Tonno Borghetti, probably completely butchering that name, disclaimer, from Spain. And they almost at first glance look like inverse versions of the same black and white image, but upon closer inspection you learn that one is of the stars and one is of birds. And I thought it was a really unique exploration of just looking up at the sky, and make a powerful pair that on their own I don't think they'd hold the same weight. So this one here is from a photographer in Iran, and it's one that didn't necessarily get me with the photography alone, but the text really went a long way to add to the depth and power of the project it was from. And it was about the paradox of, you know, we live in the time where there's the most people on planet Earth ever, and loneliness seems to be a huge issue, and the kind of the paradoxical state we're living in. And it was worded so beautifully, but also not in a kind of pretentious art speaky type way, which the thing I've found with the free submissions is really how the text you add to these sort of open call submissions, or just any artwork in general, especially in photography, can really dramatically change the reading, for better and for worse. I've found a lot of different approaches to how people have been filling out the written portion. Some are writing brief descriptions for both of the images individually. Some people are writing about the specific, like harshly focusing on the duality theme and what's like how many elements of duality feature in the diptych, even if they're not necessarily present there in the diptych, which I found was interesting, because sometimes you'd read text and it felt like overcompensating rather than adding anything. Or the other one is it's just repeating what you'd obviously get from the image anyway, just for text for the sake of having text, almost like a caption describing the image visually. And yeah, sometimes it would really take away from the piece. It's almost like if the movie poster just described the plot of the film, spoilers and all. It doesn't really, why go see the film, or why did I need that information before just going and seeing for myself? And yeah, it's really interesting. And also with the sort of overcompensating ones of very like large words or like poetic language for no real reason. I was often finding I'd read the text first for those ones and be like, wow, that's basically a great poem, and then I'd open the images and it would be like just not living up to that, and it almost sets you up for failure by setting the bar too high, or just making the work seem pretentious. So I think being really mindful of how you write about photography as well, especially your own, when you're explaining it to other people or presenting it to other people, becomes really important, because it does affect opinion and reading and just the tone you're trying to set for the work as well. And you can sense anyone who's being inauthentic in this aspect. As you know, the one that I was talking about, the pair from Iran, there was no sense of disconnect between the language, like the text and the images, and also a sense of authenticity. It didn't feel like added on afterwards. It felt as though the photographer was thinking about this as he was shooting the images, which is incredibly important, especially with an open pool where a lot of people have kind of just smacked random images together, or picked one really strong image they really want to get published and then tried to pair it with something else just because, oh, this one requires two. So now we're at the end of the process. We've gone through all of the diptychs, the people have been selected, and the project has basically been handed back to Anne, Andre and April at Ephemere to finish finalising the layouts, designing the book and printing the book. At this stage, our roles as co-curators are pretty much done. We've been brought back to do some sort of like spell checking and all of those sort of jobs, but I'm not going to include that in the vlog because I don't think it's very interesting watch to talk. I don't really have anything to talk about it necessarily. So the last meeting we had was about some of the ideas that were floating around about how to present the object of the book itself. And some of the ideas were really intriguing and unique. Luckily though, because of the jump forward in time, I do have the book with me, so I can walk you through it. So this is it. This is the final product. This is the Diptych book that became neither here nor there. And what the book actually consists of is actually 2 books held together by a half Duff's cover. Really unique and interesting way to represent the duality theme and the diptych theme through the design of the book itself. And it's not 2 separate books, they follow onto each other. The middle spread is still like an internal spread despite being 2 separate booklets. So someone managed to get the back cover of one and the front cover of the other in theory, but they're meant to be kept together as a pair, and the design follows through all of the diptychs we selected and has some really interesting spreads as well. Some people got their own double spreads, some people shared their spreads with 2, 3, sometimes 4 other artists, and they were all paired together very carefully and concisely to create a really interesting mood as it goes through. There's also a foreword by Anne, which combines all of the words from the co-curators together in one place so that there's not like 20 pages of text before you get into the actual images in this book, which I think is definitely a good decision to keep just the page number down and keep the product concise. But personally, I think it's one of the most unique decisions they could have made to bind it in this way, and for that reason I kind of love it. And yeah, everyone involved absolutely smashed it. So that's been, you know, the little vlog exploring the creation of the latest Ephemere title. And since then, there's been 2 or 3 more other open calls. She's doing Tokyo Photo Fest as well, which is her own photography festival that I have some work up at, which I'm really excited about. And she's presented the book there, and seems like they're having a great time, although I couldn't make it there in person myself. So hope this vlog has been interesting, and I have some more of other projects coming up in the future, so keep an eye out for those. They'll be coming out relatively soon.